I'm a full-time writer and I'm a freelancer. And this year I have written over 100,000 words between my debut work of fiction, The Nomad Detective, which you can get at the link below, which was around 61,000 words, as well as my work for my clients as a book developmental editor and book ghostwriter, and also twice weekly posts on my Substack. All of those things, people ask me all the time, Amy, how do you write so much? And my secrets are split up into 4 tips, which I will share with you today in terms of how to be productive as a writer and still reach your goals, but not let the creeping writer's block or mental fatigue just get you down. And so these tips I think will help you unblock, find creativity, write things that are actually good, and enjoy the process instead of feeling like I have to do this. Because part of the fun of being a writer is enjoying the fact that you are a writer and this is what you do every day. So, my first tip is how to kind of take away the pressure of performing as a writer. And instead of having this, oh, I have to write gold every time I sit down on my computer, the goal should instead be I have to sit down and write something that resembles words, and I have to write 3,000 words a day. 1,500 words a day. Back when I did National Novel Writing Month, which I did, which is, the challenge that happens in November where people write novels or whatever books they're working on. They try to hit 50,000 words and you just do that for a month. And I did that every November for 6 years in a row. And the thing that really changed my brain as a writer doing NaNoWriMo every year was that I just had to show up and write 1,600 words a day, and or a little over, like 1,667 words a day would get me to 50,000 words. I just had to do that. And some days I would write 5,000 words. I'd write 10,000 words. I'm like, no big deal. And the thing is, once you sit down to write and you're like, oh, I just have to write 1,600 words today, it opens the floodgates. It allows you to get into this flow state where you just zero in and you're like, I got this. And my favorite writing sessions have always been where I've sat down and I'm like, I'm just going to write a little bit today. And then all of a sudden the ideas come in and I am excited. And then the plot just takes a turn that just somehow aligns perfectly with the character journeys and what I'm trying to do and my outline and the themes. And I'm like, now we're rocking and rolling. But that only would have happened because I sat down and I'm like, I'm just going to write a few words today. And then it kind of snowballed into that. And so I think that as a writer, we have to give that credence to our subconscious. It's gonna come and help us when we need it the most. It's like the moment in the action film where you think all is lost, but then all of a sudden your friend shows up to save the day, or whatever crazy twist comes in where the hero gets a lot of unexpected help. That's not convenient at all for the writers. So setting word count goals can look differently depending on what you're doing. And so when I was writing Nomad Detective earlier this year, I felt so stuck because I haven't written and published a work of fiction other than some serialized work that I was doing on a novel on another one of my Substacks that I am still working on. Other than that, I haven't written and published fiction since my scripted podcast, The Last Station, way back in the beginning of the pandemic. And so I felt a little nervous to put myself out there again. And when I decided to do this, I just was a little bit blocked in the beginning. I was like, this is really why is this so difficult? And eventually I was just like, you know what? I'm just going to set a word count goal and I'm going to divide it into days. And it doesn't matter which part of the draft I'm working on. I just have to hit this word count goal every day and just put something on the page. And I was really scared because I was like, what if it's not good? What if I end up spending a lot of time rewriting it? And I just committed to sitting down and hitting my word count goals. And lo and behold, the good stuff, it came bubbling to the surface. So if you're feeling overwhelmed by a large book draft, a large freelance project, you just need to sit down, figure out the word count goals, and then just go. And then you'll get there. It's as easy as that. See, writing's easy. This second thing that really changes things is setting strong deadlines. And because I am a self-published author and the Nomad Detective Volume 1 I didn't have any deadlines. I could just do it whenever. And this is the problem because, especially in the fiction world where you're writing more for yourself, I knew I wanted to tell these stories. I knew I wanted to get this collection out there because I didn't see a lot of female detective characters out there that really spoke to me. I didn't see like a female Sherlock Holmes, like in the kind of way that I wanted to see on the page. And so I knew that I wanted to share these stories and intertwine them with my travel stories as a digital nomad. But I was like, I'll write tomorrow. I have like some client work to do. I have some Substack work to do. I'll get to my fiction tomorrow. And so setting aggressive deadlines for fiction is important. And you can do this either by having a writers group that holds you accountable, or the thing that I did that was really sneaky and really scary was I set the Amazon pre-order to August 1st. And this was back in May. So in May, I'm like, August 1st, that's when my book will be completely done, proofread, formatted, polished, and ready to go. And if you saw the draft in May, there wasn't much there. And so I had, I think, 2 stories done in May, and then had outlines for maybe 1 more out of the 4 stories because it's a serialized short story collection following the same characters. And I'm like, yeah, August 1st, let's go. And so I was really, and this is actually something my partner Kyle Cords kind of recommended me to do. And he was so right because he knows me so well. And he's like, Amy, you need a deadline that is not just self-imposed. I'm like, you're right, you're right, you're right. And the thing with Amazon KDP pre-orders, if you miss the pre-order deadline, you are not allowed to take any pre-orders for the next year. And so that was enough motivation for me to get really stressed for a moment and then really focused. And that's when I started the word count goals. That's when I was really pushing myself. And then within the span of June, I outlined, wrote, and revised 2 stories. And then in July, I rewrote all 4 and finished the full line edit, finished reading every single story out loud, and was like, this is the stuff. We're good. So that is really truly the part that I think a lot of people overlook, is setting that deadline that is immovable. However that needs to manifest, whether it's doing what I did and setting an Amazon KDP pre-order, all you need is your book cover and book description and book title, and you can set it and then tell people to start buying your book and then know if you miss it, not only will Amazon penalize you, but you'll lose all your pre-orders. Great motivation. Wonderful motivation. So that is something that I think helps a lot. And then the third thing that I do, and this is something that I bake in every week. And when people are talking about like productivity tips for writers, they're usually talking about like, time blocking or, planning the draft and breaking it into smaller chunks. And I think those things are important, but I think that the thing on a micro level that a lot of people don't think about is simply the power of a Sunday reset. And I'm going to drop some posts down in the description box talking about what does the power of a Sunday reset look like for writers, and how do you set yourself up and prime yourself for creativity every week when there is so much going on. So I'm in Poland right now because I'm a digital nomad. I travel full time. And a lot of my year this year has been going to spending time in Japan and South Korea. I, spent some time in Singapore and Taiwan. And so I am doing so much travel stuff. I also have clients that I am working with in terms of helping with their book ghostwriting or book developmental editing. And like I said, my Substack and social media and sharing tips with you guys here. And so there's a lot going on. That's not including admin work, the boring life stuff, and then doing laundry, things like that, as well as making time for my creative writing. And every Sunday, I always do the same set of things in terms of tidying up where I'm staying, in terms of thinking about what I want to do for the week, setting aside time to go work out because, it's so easy to just like forget about taking care of your body when you're wrapped up in reading widely and writing and honing your craft and all of these very intellectual things. But if you're not also hitting the gym and taking care of yourself, then it can impact your work in a big way. So every Sunday I look at my calendar and I set intentions for the week in the form of a Notion template that I'm working on and will eventually share here. And I set basically what I do some reflections about what went right last week, what went right this week. And this is another post I'm going to drop below from my Substack newsletter. I decide whether it's going to be a growth week or a maintenance week. And the difference is that a growth week is a week that I am pushing. It is a week that I am writing a lot. It's a week that I'm really trying to get my goals further. A maintenance week is a week where I am intentionally pulling back. It is a week where I'm reading both the first and second books of Fourth Wing in the span of 48 hours and just staying in bed and ordering delivery. It's like the week that I am really taking my foot off the gas and just existing. And those weeks are so important, especially if you have a crazy life or if you're a digital nomad like I am. Like, it can feel like things are really crazy. And that's why you have to take a maintenance week, especially if you're self-employed like I am, because it can be hard to just go like you're pushing all of the time, you're, hustling, and then you get burnt out. And if you don't have maintenance weeks, you will get burnt out. I think that the ratio between growth weeks and maintenance weeks can kind of depend on what your goals are, but there could be three, growth weeks to one maintenance week. But if you're starting to get burnt out, you can maybe kind of like play with that and maybe have like 2 growth weeks, 2 maintenance weeks, and you can kind of decide how you structure these weeks. But that has really helped my mindset. And the way that I decide whether or not it's going to be a growth week or a maintenance week stems from that Sunday reset, where I'm taking stock of how I felt last week, how I'm feeling now, how I want to feel at the end of the week, what is there on my plate, and how can I best go into this week. And so that, I think, has really changed the game in terms of sitting there, going through my Sunday reset, going through my tasks, and then as part of my Sunday reset, also time blocking on my calendar. When am I going to write? In the week, on the weekend, in the beginning of the day? Obviously, that's when I do a lot of my writing, but I know some people are night owls, and I used to do that. So that's kind of like the big kind of weekly check in to make sure I stay on track. Because I think that if you set big goals and you're just like, this is my goal this quarter, but then you're not checking in with yourself on a weekly basis to make sure that you're actively doing the habits and the building blocks that will make up those goals, you're going to be toast. There's going to be no hope for you. And then the fourth key to success, you're going to hate this. Like, you're going to hate this. I'm going to say this tip and you're going to be like, no. And I'm going to know, and I'm going to be like, wait, listen to me. Listen to me. This is important. My fourth key to success is recent. My fourth key to success, I can't believe I didn't do this earlier. I feel stupid. I feel like I have been conned. I feel like society has taken advantage of me. And because I have a little bit of an addictive personality, I am weak. And that's why I fell for this. And if you're a writer, the imagery around this is huge. It is all consuming. If you're an American, also, this is a big deal. The thing that I did that I hate that it works, I hate it. I gave up caffeine. And before you tune off, before you click off this video, I want you to stop and ask yourself, when was the last time you went 2 weeks without caffeine? I want you to ask yourself that question seriously. And I want you to think about, how did you feel in those 2 weeks that you went off caffeine? And you can't answer that because you haven't. Because matcha has a ton of caffeine. Coffee has a ton of caffeine. I seem energized right now, but I assure you, I have not had a drop of caffeine in pretty much over a week. And I basically was at the hardest point of wrapping up the Nomad Detective. And I was having these crazy energy dips in the middle of the day. And I've given up caffeine a few times before, and it's always been good and good for me and good for my mental health and good for reducing anxiety and good for deep work. And I've always ignored that. Every time I'm like, oh, no, I'm just going to I'm going to go through this period where I've given up caffeine, and then I'm going to just reincorporate it back in my life because it's great and I love coffee shops. I'm a writer. The last few months, I have had these crazy energy dips, and I can't take a nap in the middle of the day if I'm drinking caffeine. I slept okay for most of that time, but I just I would have multiple matchas or multiple coffees a day because I just kept hitting this insane energy slump in the middle of the day where I just want to go to sleep. And then I gave up caffeine, and then I let my body rest. And I hate saying this, I did not want this to be true. And I started taking naps in the middle of the afternoon. I slept for 3 hours one day, and I got my sleep schedule back on track, which is a lot easier when you're not drinking caffeine. And then I realized I was having longer and better work sessions. I got to the gym more, so I slept even better. And I finished my book, The Nomad Detective, without a drop of caffeine. And I realized I have been sold such a lie about caffeine, and I am a coffee fiend. You go on my Instagram and you will see so many pictures of coffee around the world. I am obsessed. I went to a blue bottle coffee tasting in Kyoto. It was beautiful. It was amazing. I'm obsessed. I've told you, I'm obsessed. I'm obsessed. And I can't drink caffeine anymore. And I think that we've all been sold a lie. If you feel like you are tired, if you feel like you are overrun, overwhelmed, overstimulated, anxious, you probably should not be drinking coffee. And I think that I'm sure there's some studies that are going to come out in the future about how caffeine is actually bad for you, instead of all these studies about how caffeine is like a miracle drug. Like, I'm suspicious. Like, I'm sus. Like, we already debunked that alcohol isn't good for you. And I haven't drank alcohol in the last 4 years either. And I don't want to have the habits of like conservative church going wife. I don't like, that's not what I aspire to be as, a like, so like, edgy traveler, writer. It's fine. Like, what I'm trying to say is, like, I don't see myself as somebody who is like disciplined, like super health focused, but I have become that in the past few years, putting my autoimmune condition in remission. And my identity shifted. And when my very smart, very intelligent, very attractive partner, Kyle, told me to give up caffeine, I was like, you're crazy. But he hasn't had any caffeine his whole life, and he has tons of energy. And so I realized that giving up caffeine is actually going to be the biggest productivity hack of them all. And I hate this. I hate that I'm telling you this. Next, I'm going to tell you that working out in the morning is worth the hype. And unfortunately, I'm finding out that it is. And yeah, this is kind of like the weird productivity hack that I wish was wrong. I wish I was lying to you about, but try it for 2 weeks and see how you feel. And make sure you're sleeping well and taking a nap if you need it. Try it for 2 weeks and you will comment on this video. Let me know if you try. And you'll be like, Amy, yeah, I see how I've been lied to, and now I'm converted. So welcome. So those are all of my productivity tips. Like I said, you can find a lot of the links to the posts that I talked about in my description. I'm going to be doing more videos about the process of self-publishing a book, because self-publishing a book is, the books that are self-published can look indistinguishable from traditionally published books with Amazon KDP and hiring a good designer and a good team to help you. I think that people do not realize the bar to publish your book and become a bestseller and get out there. It's incredible. Like, it's like, there's so much opportunity in publishing right now, and I'm really excited to share more information with you. So if you like this video, subscribe, turn on your notifications, like, and leave a comment and let me know, what are your productivity hacks for writers, and what do you do that really works?